All right, today we are jumping into a big one. We're putting two heavyweights in the world of cloud data processing head-to-head, Amazon EMR and Azure HDInsight. We're going to break down what they do, where they overlap, and most importantly, what really makes them different. Let's get into it.
Here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll set the stage and talk about why we even need these tools, the whole challenge of taming big data. Then we'll look at what they have in common, before diving into the really juicy stuff, where they differ. We'll compare security and performance, highlight the unique strengths of each, and then wrap it all up with the final takeaway.
So, first things first, let's talk about the massive problem that both Amazon EMR and Azure HDInsight were actually created to solve.
I mean, this is really the million-dollar question, isn't it? Every company on the planet wants to pull amazing insights from their data, but dealing with the complex, expensive, and frankly, painful infrastructure behind it can be a total nightmare.
You've got these incredible open-source frameworks like Apache Hadoop and Spark, which are absolute powerhouses for processing huge data sets. But, and this is a big but, they are notoriously difficult to set up and manage at scale. We're talking about juggling distributed computers, making sure your data is safe, and trying to guess how much power you'll need tomorrow. It's a huge operational headache.
And that's exactly where this category of services comes into play. Think of them as the expert managers who handle all that messy infrastructure stuff for you. Setting up servers, configuring networks, and scaling everything up or down. This frees up your data scientists and engineers to do what they do best, actually analyze the data and uncover those game-changing insights.
Okay, so now we get to problem they solve. Let's dig into the common ground. What exactly makes EMR and HDInsight so similar?
Well, when you strip it all back, they're really two sides of the same coin. At their core, Amazon EMR and Azure HDInsight are built to do the exact same job. Give you a managed, ready-to-go environment in the cloud for running all the big names in big data. Think Hadoop, Spark, Hive, and so on.
But of course, they are not identical. And this is where things get really interesting. Let's start pulling back the layers on the key differences that really define each of these platforms. When you really boil it down, the major differences shake out into three main buckets. First, the ecosystem they live in. Second, the variety of frameworks they support and how quickly they get new updates. And third, a really big one, how they handle cost. Let's break each of those down.
Okay, first up, ecosystem. This is probably the biggest deciding factor for most people. Each service is woven deeply into its home cloud. EMR feels like a natural part of any AWS setup, connecting flawlessly with things like S3 for storage or Redshift for data warehousing. In the same way, HDInsight is the obvious choice for companies all in on Azure, plugging right into tools like Power BI and Azure Machine Learning.
Now, let's talk about money, because this is where we see a really significant difference. Both services can automatically scale to save you cash, but EMR has a pretty powerful secret weapon. And that weapon is called AWS Spot Instances. Essentially, AWS lets you use their spare computing capacity for a massive discount. We're talking up to 90% off the regular price. For any data job that can handle an interruption, this is an absolute game changer for your budget, giving EMR a serious edge in cost efficiency.
All right, we've covered the core functions and the cost. Now let's shift gears and look at two things every big company cares deeply about: security and performance.
You know what's fascinating here is how similar they are. Both platforms offer top-notch enterprise-grade security. The real difference isn't if they're secure, but how they do it. EMR plugs into the AWS security tools, like IAM for users and VPC for networks. HDInsight does the exact same thing, just with its Azure counterparts like Active Directory and VNet. So, bottom line, both are incredibly secure. When it comes to raw speed and performance, EMR often has a slight edge. This really comes down to two things. It offers a wider selection of machine types you can run your jobs on, and it tends to adopt the latest, fastest versions of frameworks like Spark a little bit quicker. That being said, HDInsight is no slouch. It delivers really solid performance and definitely benefits from Azure's massive global network. So with all that context, let's zero in on the unique advantages of each service. Where does each one truly shine?
And you hear it right from the top. Mark Russinovich, the CTO of Microsoft Azure, makes it clear that HDInsight is all about empowering businesses to grow by using their data. So what does that really mean?
HDInsight's biggest strength is what I'd call its home field advantage.
If your company lives and breathes Microsoft, this is for you. The integration with tools like Power BI is just effortless. And for any business that relies on Azure Active Directory for security, HDInsight is a simple, secure, and incredibly familiar choice. It just fits perfectly.
Now on the flip side, you have Ben Snively from AWS highlighting EMR's raw power and ease of use at massive scale. So let's look at its biggest advantages.
EMR's real edge comes down to one word: flexibility. We already talked about the huge cost savings you can get from Spot instances. It also generally supports more open-source tools and gets the newest versions faster. But there's this brilliant architectural advantage. It separates your compute power from your storage in S3. This means you can fire up a massive cluster for one specific job, and as soon as it's done, poof, it's gone. That is incredibly efficient.
Okay, this brings us to the big finish. We've laid it all out, so what's the final verdict here? Look, the real takeaway here is that there's no winner. This isn't about which service is better overall, it's about which one is the best fit for you. It's a strategic choice. If your organization is already deeply rooted in the Azure and Microsoft world, HDInsight is almost certainly your smoothest, most integrated path. But if your absolute top priorities are squeezing every drop of performance, having maximum flexibility, and most of all, optimizing costs, then Amazon EMR makes an incredibly strong argument.
And it really leaves us with one final big question to think about. Are you choosing a cloud provider based on a specific data tool you need, or are you picking your data tool because of the cloud you're already in? The answer to that question will probably tell you everything you need to know. Thanks for tuning in.